All right. My guests are also mapping their routes this morning because they're meant to be using the blocked-off road to get to their next destinations, and that's the disruption that we are having. Back to the disruption of the supplementary budget. And Doctor, I would like you to first give us some reactions from where we left it off with Charity having raised some few points that I would like to hear your 2 cents, either of emphasis or contradiction thereof.
Of course, as a way of connecting, charity is not government, and government is not about charity. So what is talking about? Rationalization. I still hear many people saying, oh, but when we rationalize agencies, people will lose their jobs. Government is not a charitable organization. It owes its millions of citizens out there a living.
Correct.
A means to make a living.
Yes.
So I don't want to borrow money to pay salaries for an entity because they are employees in that entity. And at the end of the day, I failed to fix a road that leads to an entire constituency somewhere. Because every time you borrow to pay wages, this is how the debt refinancing comes. Unless this person is delivering some good on the table, that person you're going to continue borrowing to pay their wages. And if they are not putting anything on the table, the debt you borrowed to pay their wages comes back as principal. It needs to be paid. It comes with interest, and you're still borrowing to pay their wages. That's why we're saying government is not charity. Strike off these entities. Government, do your core business. Make a conducive economic environment. Now, what is actually raising here, we want to rationalize the entire government, not just agencies. And that is where you can get into ministries. And I'm deliberate saying ministries, not just ministers. I don't mind having 100 ministers in 20 ministries. Because the cost is on the ministries, not just the ministers. Because you have all these ministries, some of them need to be merged, and then you can give them a super minister with some ministers of state. Now, the complexity of Uganda's system is there is business that happens in parliament, and it can only be presented by a minister. So when I was in the mainstream of some of these things, I had about 6 ministers in finance. But sometimes you have to call the speaker and the clerk to say, please reschedule this business of the Ministry of Finance because we have no minister today. 2 or 1 has gone to State House for that day. 1 or 2 are abroad. They are doing some other work there. Others were delegated, and you literally have none. Now, you want also to revisit that. So if you're going to scale down ministers, then the nature of government business also needs to be revisited. Now, some of these go into the laws, the way they were structured, that's presenting this on the floor of parliament, there must be a minister, because no other person can go on the floor of parliament and you're on the order paper. Somebody is going to raise a question. That's why sometimes you see it comes to a situation where parliament stalls because government people are not there. But even then now, if you can clean up that, this is why I'm saying restructuring so many things. If you can restructure that and say, maybe a PS can come in, or you can prepare another minister to speak for this other minister. But the cost of ministers is not that big.
The way they were saying we can have a 3rd deputy speaker.
Now, that is where I want to go. When I look at the
in the eventualities,
when I look at the budget,
it has to be out.
The budget of parliament for this year, and you divide it by the number of days in a year, we are spending, or supposed to spend, 2.6 billion on parliament per day. You want to walk in there?
Of course.
2.6 billion, including Eid, Sunday, Christmas, because I've just divided by 365 days.
Yes.
And remember, sometimes they're on recess, but things are happening. That's a huge budget. You want to walk into it. So for me to get back and begin to restructure an agency that takes 2 billion a year, which is parliamentary spending per day, you have bigger work to do. But we cannot assume that the budget will always meet the expenditures. It doesn't matter how we improve our revenue collection. If you already have debt eating into your budget that chunk, every money URA collects, debt is taking a good percentage of it, almost 60%. And we can only pay debt through either URA collections or more borrowing. Now, you want to address those fundamentals. So as we say rationalization of government, you want to get it back in there. I'm seeing part of the supplementary is going to the road fund. We had agreed to wind up the road fund.
Yeah.
Because the road fund receives money from the Ministry of Finance to send it to the local governments. But the Ministry of Finance has a direct line of sending money to the local governments.
Correct.
So why do I need an agent to do what I have already been doing? And why now they may want to reinstate this is because when the president guided wisely and very well to say this year let's give every local government 1 billion, every district for roads. It was of course a drop in the ocean, seeing what roads there are out there. People said, let's use the road fund money. After all, it was going to the local governments. So I thought we had begun the business of rationalizing that particular anomaly. But now I see it back in the supplementary. And I see also money going to the local governments in the supplementary. So I'm like, what is that agency doing? Who is fooling who here? Those are tough, this is what we were saying, but somebody may be saying, oh, charity organization, people here need their jobs, some rent there for somebody. Government should not be charity. When you go to meet your doctor, the doctor is going to tell you, your liver has a problem. We are going to open up your tummy. So a lot of the decisions we need to take at this point to rescue the economy and get out of this kind of supplementary borrowing here and here are not going to be decisions that are for debate. Rationalization, compare it with when we say sale of receivership, sale of entities in the private sector that are not doing well. You take it over,
Which is complex.
then you bring in somebody to manage the process of liquidation.
Process as well.
The law comes after a decision to take over has come in. But the law first says, wait, take it over. Then you take it over. Then you come in to say, employees, this company has been taken over. We are laying you off. We will pay you this. We are doing this. Now, in government, we want to do it the reverse. First talk to employees and their peers and their next of kin and then see whether you should or you should not. You're not going to go it that way. If you follow that, supplementaries are going to continue coming in.
All right, let's look at some of the other contentious things that were raised also. Eye candy was the Rural Hospital.
Yeah.
2.7 billion being requested to supervise something that has not really taken off. Only cranes stand and mabati to cover it, and yet on the other side you're having a property that is meant to be sold off, but then they're requesting for money for renovation. You do have an airport to which had in contract, as far as oil and gas is concerned, is supposed to be, was mandated to another car company to be able to do that. But it's still appearing in the supplementary, and so it feels like there's a pool of inconsistency in how monies are being dispersed. Charity.
So when you look at what you talk about, it is actually political, because 13 billion for artists. Why artists? Why now? 2026 is closing in.
No, because
and we
COVID-19 hit the artists badly, and they've been pleading with government constantly to be able to get
it is the priority.
Support.
So for me, instead of giving it to the artists, just one facet, a group called artists, why don't we pick it and give it to SMEs? Because with SMEs, you will actually drive your economy. You will have more revenue. You will have a wider tax base. You'll have more people employed. So why don't you pick it and give it to SMEs and support the SMEs? If not, why not pick it and work with the private sector foundation and push tourism to where it is supposed to be? What has Rwanda done with its tourism, even when they have fewer animals than Uganda?
Let's not go to Rwanda. I recently saw something that they were doing, Visit Rwanda, and they were collaborating with an international music festival, bringing it to Rwanda, and they were bringing the current biggest artists in the world on the Rwandan stage. And I was like, oh, we've been crying marketing and branding for our country, Uganda, here for the longest time. And here I am complaining, but indirectly I am marketing Rwanda.
Exactly.
The country I'm more concerned about, and I'll speak to it later, is Tanzania.
Okay. All right, let's continue.
So you see, so you have to look at what are the opportunities. I started by talking about opportunities. So we have an opportunity in SMEs, we have an opportunity in tourism, and we can choose to pick on those two and capitalize our maximum effort there. Let's pick the 2.7 of Luvoa Hospital, because Luvoa we have tried to see it constructed. It has not come out of the ground. What are you going to supervise which is new? Pick that 2.7, add it on to the money for the artists. That has come to how many billion? It has come to about 14 billion or 15 billion thereabout, and add on the one for the Gaddafi Mosque renovation, because Gaddafi Mosque is still under controversy. Court is ruling, court is saying this is happening, so let's first leave that and we pick it and also amalgamate it and pick a whole lump sum and put it in 2 places. Tourism, it is like choosing to do business. You want to see where can I get more? Will I put my money in the insurance company, or will I put it in the bank and fix it? So you choose, you say, okay, maybe the bond is going to give me more money, so let me go for the bond. Or insurance company is going to give me more profit, let me go to the insurance company and I put my money into the insurance company. This is exactly what I'm asking government to do. So yes, they may have their own political reasons, but I think right now the ground for politics should be minimized. Let's focus a bit more on the economic gains and what we want as a country. Because you see, once you move the economy into a certain direction, you can always manage the politics. The politics can always be managed, but the economy may not always be managed. If it all sinks, we all go down.
All right. Charity makes a case that it's all politics at the end of the day. But I'm sure by the time that the State Minister came to the floor of Parliament and presented that supplementary budget, there were reasons as to why those are the items that they thought considered very well and thoroughly to be able the items of need of more monies at this point in time. And so, Doctor, it begs the question, what are the priorities of government midway the financial year?
Of course, government priorities shouldn't be changing, because a priority just don't wake up. As we've said, Munyonyo, we knew the summit was coming way back in time.
Yeah.
So that we made it a priority. Now, we may be rushing to do certain roads to feed into that, but we knew this was coming and we knew the location where it's going to be. So when I see a supplementary for Munyonyo now, it begs on how well do we do our planning, even after seeing our priorities.
By now, when it is in 30 days.
It is in 30 days. So would you even have spent the money? I remember when Chogam was coming, we released some money, and some people were not even able to do their things. And Chogam caught them halfway. You are also looking at things like wages. What are wages doing in a supplementary in November? Were those employees there or not there? Did we foresee them coming on board? I want to hear supplementary for the Ministry of Defense, that something has come up in the Congo and we already have troops on the ground. We need money for them or else they're in danger. That I can tolerate, that discussion. So one, we need to be putting in some more tightening things, and finance should not be, Ministry of Finance should not be actually carrying the burden of those who fail on these basics, of which is their day-to-day work, to plan and share their plans with government for financing. So anybody who comes up with some of these kinds of things, I need wages, I need what, should go to Parliament to defend their supplementary request. Let them go and face that Parliament. It shouldn't be Minister of Finance to fight their battle. Because when I look through a number of things here, they are really, they shouldn't have been there in the first place. But as I again have said, Charity has mentioned, the avalanche of events. You are now coming and signaling to the privates, to the market, I need 3.5 trillion urgently. Some people out there have been saving their money to do an investment. And they were discussing, like we are discussing here, where should we put our money?
Exactly.
Should we expand our hospitals? Should we revive our schools? Should we grow onions? You've just influenced that decision. Say, please bring it to government, we'll give you 17%, fix it for 15 years or 10 years. I'm going to give you 17%. So with my billion, I'm just going to send it to government, go home and sleep. Government will be giving me 170 million per year.
Wow.
Tax me 10%, which is 17 million. I remain with my 153 million.
Wow.
Divide that by 12. That's 13 million
every month.
Why should I bother to go and work? Why should I bother to go and do what? Now, those are the avalanche of incentives, because government is supposed to provide signals. Is that the private sector you expect to grow the economy and pay taxes?
Zero.
Because remember, if we had taken our billion into the real economy, we are going to employ people, use some water, pay some rent of somebody, hire some service providers, trigger that chain of events in the economy, and then pay taxes of 30% if we make a profit. Pay as you earn, which is almost 40%, sometimes 30%, on our employees. But now you've just given me credit to say, if you fix the bond above 10 years, the tax is 10%.
So the
you have completely annihilated the entire framework of signals. The ball is there on the pitch. The referee has said, guys, I've gone. This is rugby. You need an umpire there.
On that note, Doctor, then, what are then the current or emerging opportunities that are present in the economy right now to still stride on?
Now, those are some of the things you want to say. What opportunities have I created? And remember, for a long-term investor that you need, it's not the opportunities you have now. You're going to tell me we have a large population. Do they have aggregate demand?
46 million.
I've been checking inventories, the numbers of Bureau of Statistics. Inventories have increased from about 500 billion to over 1 trillion. Now, inventories really are businesses took in items, raw materials, planning to produce for the market. Now, some of them have actually produced but failed to sell. Now, that is the locking. It's like constipation in your stomach. So you don't tell me we have a large market when other businesses which tried to invest have failed to sell because of low demand. And that's why I wanted to get to Tanzania. I have information. Companies in Uganda are beginning to relocate to Tanzania.
And companies in Uganda beginning to relocate to Zambia. Yes.
And Malawi.
So what signal are you giving?
Like
Centenary banks.
Now that's
Exactly. Malawi.
that they'll go to those other countries and yet still bring back the product.
So the jobs are being exported.
Uganda.
This is what Trump realized on America later on, that American companies were going to China. And the jobs had gone. So
and China grew.
Exactly. So we are in the issue of job creation, stimulating aggregate demand. Where are the companies? How do you keep them here? If the companies see that government is going to continue borrowing, then they are going to shift. Because the interest rates in Uganda are going to be so high if you go to borrow. So I would rather go to Tanzania. After all, this is East African community. There's no taxation when I come to supply the Ugandan market. And they have a list of companies that have been leaving. Butter, I don't see it.
Leica Mobile has just left yesterday.
Some production chains of Unilever, I don't see them here anymore. Those are, but Unilever products are here. So that's the economic planning. That's what I want to see in the National Development Plan 4. What signal are you giving this investor who is deciding I can be in Tanzania, I can be in Uganda, I can be in Rwanda? Is Uganda presenting itself as the best? You don't tell this investor who have the lowest inflation in town. That's part of the story. If lowest inflation is coming at high borrowing costs and is coming at low aggregate demand, as an investor, don't tell me a monthly figure when I'm looking at a span of 10, 15 years. You're not speaking to that investor and it's going to leave you. So those for me are the chain of events that we need to bring on the table. What does this supplementary mean? Artists, are they not conducted for as an SME? Let them create themselves as small and medium enterprises. And then we had 200 billion for SME recovery fund out of COVID. They could have applied. What is the problem with an artist being a company? We have players in Europe. Each player is actually a business. They have their own manager who sells them, who plans their travel. Artists global. They have people who manage their travel. So why, so why can't artists in Uganda become an SME so that we stop saying artist fund there? They also come into the SME bracket because government has already provided money for SMEs. By the way, the 200 billion we did 2 years ago, November 2021, I think. Only about 10 billion had been dispatched by June this year. So what are the artists doing? Money is already in the system. Encourage them to go and pick it up. And many others.
Those are the hits and the misses out of the supplementary part.
So those opportunities already on the table. But why are they not being actualized is the question you want to ask and get back in the kitchen.
But who's to answer that question?
As the policy analysts and government wants to say, I put up this thing. Why is it not working? Could I have missed something? could I have thought to myself trying to solve their problem? Did I consult them enough? But don't just create a new one when the old one hasn't worked, because even the new one is likely to fall into.
That's where I come from, to go back and ask what are the priorities, because even if through consultations this is what they could come up as supplementaries and the interpretation thereof that you have shared, then it begs the question, what are the priorities of government? But then we also want to ask ourselves another question: what are the considerations that have to be put in place or adopted for a country by and large to have a sustainable budget throughout the year in the absence of supplementary charity?
A sustainable budget throughout the year. You see, budgets do not just happen as an incidence. Like, you just don't budget in 1 year. It's a process. The budget for next year, the process started as soon as the other budget was read. And what usually happens is the process is consultative. They ask across the board. They go to the districts, they go to the sub-counties, they look at the demands, and then they look at priority areas and decide that for us, this is going to be the priority. Ideally, because we already had a big debt, what we needed to have been looking at from the last 5 years, not just this year, not the year before this year, but for the last 5 years, we needed to have been looking at our income growth and our income growth rates. And that's why I've been emphasizing areas of where do we get the income. That was supposed to happen 5 years ago. Now, when you decide on it 5 years ago, that's where you put your money, such that you insist on getting a profit that you're going to have to buffer you for the other expenditures, even the non-known expenditures, because budgets are also non-known. We have miscellaneous expenditures. Those are what should be accounting for the supplementary budget. But even when you call it a miscellaneous expenditure, it had better be worth its salt. What did we see coming up? And I hope Parliament will be able to tell us with the 285 billion of State House. They'll be able to tell us that this is exactly what State House is going to spend on, so that we appreciate as taxpayers, we appreciate as a country. We have money that has been collected from the express highway, NTV express highway, and UNRWA gave a figure that they collect daily. It's in billions. When that money reaches the consolidated fund, what happens with this money? Are we picking this money and using it to make more income? Is the question I'm asking, because that is money that is coming in. It has to service a debt of the Chinese. Remember, they loaned us. Yes, it has to go into servicing bits of that. Is there anything that is left of it? Is there anything, does it actually service that debt even? Because it may not be servicing that debt. So these are the questions that government needs to have asked itself 5 years ago. Where is the income pocket? It is here. So how do we grow it? First, grow that income before you spend more. But what we see now is we spend and spend and spend. We have an insatiable appetite to spend, and yet we do not seem to invest in the growth. Look at agriculture, for example, and every NDP, National Development Plan 1, 2, 3, all of them came with plan for modernization of agriculture. As in, agriculture is going to be our thrust, because most of Ugandans work within the agricultural sector. It is an SDG for you to even achieve. And you are saying, okay, we are going to look at the rain patterns. Look at the way this rain has even looked at itself. Today it's raining, tomorrow it's shining, the other day it's flooding. You're just not sure. You're a farmer. What is it that government has put in place to support farmers that will have more production and will have more sales? And the 46 million Ugandans is a good market. How have we utilized that market? What we have done with Ugandans is to make them more poor. They have nothing to spend. They can hardly even afford food. Now, that is not handling your market well. So if you wanted a sustainable growth for your economy, You start with the people. That is why you even have the 5 Ps for SDGs. If you look at SDGs and they tell you the thrust for where SDGs sit, they talk about people, they talk about partnerships, they talk about peace. Okay? These are issues that actually tie in with how you want your economy to grow. How are your people like? What quality of people have you grown? That's why you have human capital development. It is a scheme. You say every budget you have human capital development, but how much of that human capital development do you achieve? It's not there. And so you're talking of sustainability when the key facets for that sustainability to happen are ignored. For me, I think that prioritization should be on those things government actually knows, and I think our NDP3 has been clear. Agriculture, people growth, the human capital development, so that people can spend and also can, there's buy, give. That is how the economy moves. You spend, receive. It's a give and take. But once that is not there, then there is no sustainable growth. And for the next 20, 15 years, you'll always be telling the story there is no sustainable growth.
All right, we can't regret overspilled milk. Last 5 years, this is the result of the last 5 years that is in our face, and it's the reality. But we can save up for the next 5 years and redirect or correct some things for the next 5 years. Financial year 2027 to be a better one and a more self-sustaining one. But Doctor, how do we navigate that?
Yeah, I think it's really, as you've mentioned, outer years. A budget is a conversation of 1 year. But that budget has what we call the medium-term framework. What will the budget look like over the next 5 years? Because this particular year, the decisions you make influence those other years. And this particular year is being influenced by the decisions you made the previous year. So as we're saying, debt refinancing, it's already sitting in this budget, but it's out of decisions of 5, 6, 10 years ago. So we need to know now that the decisions we are making for 2024, 25 are going to be sitting with us up to 2030. You don't want, like Esau, to reach 2030 and you realize you traded your inheritance for a plate of lunch. Meaning you must look at the priorities of priorities today, because any borrowing you do today is disorganizing your decision-making process in future. So we need to look at that. And quite often private sector will look at the decision-making of government. We sit in boards. We don't discuss numbers as such. We discuss what is the story behind the numbers. So I want to get in and say, what is the decision-making process in government? Is it a risk to my business? Will I wake up one day, the government decided I'm taking over Umeme? Now you're inviting people to come here and invest. Somebody is looking at the Umeme case. We used to have green board. The people who were investing, they were disrupted out of the business. That's the decision-making investors are looking at. How can I secure my investment for the long term?
We are monopolizing oil importation.
So we should stop discussing a government budget as if it's a standalone item. It has events, as we said, a chain of events you want to be speaking to that I'm solid here. And that's why I'm saying people are going to Tanzania, because Tanzania has long-term signals that it gives to its public. You can see where they are going, where their budget is going to go. You can see their decision-making process. It's a more stable environment than what you have here. Kenya also a little bit of instability in that policy space. So you want to get into those directions. I want to come and invest in Uganda. Cattle processing. We used to have one of the largest, if not the largest, meat packers in Soroti, way back in time. We have a lot of cows. The Bararo are now here, they are there. A lot of cattle and a lot of milk. So if I want to invest in that sector of livestock, should I come to Uganda? Then all of a sudden you wake up, Ugandan milk can't go to Kenya. So this investor, Lato actually, who did a lot of investment here, is suffering. Not because there is no milk, not because he didn't invest, he just can't get into the Kenyan market. What is the problem? It is not his. It's a bigger problem. They are saying, Ugandan, we don't trust your quality, you're not UNBS. How are you managing foot and mouth? That's not Lato's business. But remember, there are people who are going to say, I'm not going to buy Ugandan meat because I hear there is always foot and mouth in that space. So the budget should be speaking to how do I resolve those low-hanging fruits of people who have already invested because they saw an opportunity. Our biggest export destinations, Kenya, South Sudan, DRC. We already have roads into these countries, thanks to government investment for the last several years. Now, what are we doing to make sure we keep these markets and ramp up supply to these markets? Those, for me, are the things the budget should be speaking to. But now you'll find another airport.
In Kabalega.
In Kabale. It's an international airport. Yet our trade is with DRC. And I should have invested in the Butiaba port.
You're still making losses.
Airport is also not international.
I should have invested in the Butiaba port.
No, we're still making losses with Uganda Airlines.
Yes. Butiaba port is just a few kilometers away from Kabale airport. But the Butiaba airport would open up for you gateway into the Congo, who is your second largest destination of exports.
Okay.
So how are we prioritizing? Are we speaking to our priorities? I am not very sure.
All right. Charity, let's speak to the Ugandan. What should be their priorities as we close up this conversation?
I think Ugandans are in a hard place. They are between a rock and a hard place. Because there's not a lot of opportunities for them to invest the money. Even if they had money that they want to lock up somewhere, they don't have a lot of that opportunity or that chance. So for me, what I see is more effort should come from government to give hope to its citizens, because the citizens have the will. They've gone to the gardens. The weather has been harsh on them. They don't have silos to keep their food products. The markets are available, but they are not accessing these markets. Because we talked about Mpondwe market, for example, that was opened at the border. There are many border markets that have opened, but the citizens seem not to access these markets. We need to get a linkage coming, and I think the Ugandans now need to be looking out for more opportunity of how to reach these markets, but we need more information also reaching out to the ordinary citizen as regards the available opportunities. The small available opportunities will be the eye-opener for us all. But also the whole question of, when you're a citizen, think about the question of tourism. How are we promoting our own tourism? We need to be proud of the little we have, even if it is not there. Is there somewhere we can start from? Is there something that we can do as citizens to progress our own country?
Okay.
Yeah.
Doctor, away from the politics of governance, what are the opportunities that are available for Ugandans?
I think there are many opportunities. We are still an agricultural country. Let's not run away from that. And the people around us need food to eat. People eat every day. So let's tap that. Manufacturing is a stone just slightly far away from us. So can we look back at agriculture? And the other part is 80% of Ugandans derive their livelihood from agriculture, directly or indirectly. And if you are to do manufacturing and industrialization, you need this market. So to give them incomes, you must beef up agriculture first, then to provide the food, lower the cost of living for everybody, but also give household incomes to trigger whatever investments you are doing in industrialization. So let's still prioritize agriculture, and this is not just throw money to the existing institutions. First, rationalize and restructure these institutions. Otherwise, the money will disappear, as people say, mzenyanya.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Muhumuza, and thank you so much, Madam Mahimbisiwe. And just one statement to close it all. One word to a wise is more than enough. Pick it up and run with it. Marks the end of our conversation, but we'll take a break and return shortly to stay.